So I recently got my hands on the HP EliteBook A30G5, and not just any version but the model with a glass touch panel. At first glance it looks like your typical business laptop, but after spending some time with it I realized that there's more to this machine than meets the eye. From the touchscreen to its premium build, this compact 13.3-inch laptop had me curious. Is it just another ordinary HP notebook, or does it actually hold up to day-to-day performance? Let's break it down. So the model I have with me here has an Intel 8th generation Core i5 processor with an Intel UHD 620 integrated graphics, 16GB of DDR4 memory and 256GB of SSD storage. It also has a fingerprint scanner and a dual sensor 720p setup for Windows Hello Face ID. Taking a look at the design and build quality of the EliteBook A30G5, it does feel a bit dated. That's mostly because HP's newer EliteBook models have embraced a more modern design language with sharper, straighter edges, whereas this one still carries the older, more rounded corner look at the front. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing really comes down to personal preference. Personally, I prefer the newer, more squared off aesthetic HP has been using lately. The A30G5 is also noticeably thicker and weighs around 3.32 pounds, which isn't the lightest in its class but still fairly portable. With that said, the A30G5 still holds up well in terms of quality. You are getting a full aluminum chassis which looks and feels premium. The body is sturdy and some users will appreciate the fact that you can open it with just one hand. The hinges are a bit rigid, but with the right technique it works out smoothly. The bezels around the display are notably thicker compared to modern ultrabooks, giving it a slightly older look. However, the keyboard feels comfortable to type on and it's easy to adjust to. The trackpad is also spacious enough for smooth navigation and responds well to gestures. In terms of cooling, the vents are placed on the left hand side. While this helps with heat dissipation, the aluminum chassis tend to get quite warm under intensive workloads. That said, despite the heat buildup, the laptop has held up well so far without any major performance throttling or overheating issues. Moving on to the display, the EliteBook A30G5 features a 13.3-inch Full HD IPS touchscreen panel. The brightness is decent for indoor use, but it struggles outdoors, especially under direct sunlight, where visibility drops significantly. One downside of the glass display is its high reflectiveness, which can be distracting in bright environments. Personally, I'm not a fan of glass screens for this reason. However, on the bright side, glass panels tend to offer better viewing angles compared to matte displays. When it comes to sharpness, the display is crisp enough for everyday tasks, but it's not the most color accurate panel out there. This makes it more suited for office and general productivity works rather than creative tasks like video or photo editing. Overall, the display isn't bad, but it's definitely not among the best on the market. The model I have with me here has an 8th generation Intel i5 processor with the Intel UHD 620 graphics. It has 16GB of RAM and 256GB of SSD storage. For general use, the laptop handles most tasks brilliantly. It doesn't feel laggy and multitasking is also fluid. Of course, you are not getting ultra performance here, but for everyday tasks, you should be good to go. I ran some benchmarks to get a clearer view of its performance. In Cinebench, it scored a total of 50 points in a single core test and 169 points in a multi-core test. In PC Mark 10, which simulates everyday workloads, it scored a total of 3,638 points, outperforming the EliteBook 1030G3, which scored a total of 3,288 points. This suggests that despite its slightly older design, the EliteBook A30G5 still holds up well in day-to-day performances. Battery life is also fairly decent. Although I didn't get this laptop brand new, it still manages to squeeze out around 2 to 3 hours of normal use on a single charge. This is impressive for a used unit, but if you are planning to use it unplugged for long periods, you might want to carry a charger with you. One thing to note is that because of the aluminum body, the laptop can get warm under intensive loads. The cooling system does its job, but the heat can be noticeable, especially when running benchmarks or handling heavier tasks. The EliteBook A30G5 comes in with a solid selection of ports, offering a good balance between modern and legacy connectivity. On the right hand side, you would find a SIM card slot for models with mobile connectivity, a 3.5mm audio jack, USB 3.0 Type-A port, an HDMI port for external displays, an Ethernet port, a docking station connector, a Thunderbolt 3 port, and the AC adapter connector. On the left side, there is one USB 3.0 Type-A port, a Kensington cable lock slot for security, and a smart card slot. One thing to note is that there is no SD card slot, which may be a drawback for creatives who frequently work with memory cards. The top firing speakers deliver clear and loud audio, which is a +1 ultrabook. The placement also helps prevent the sound from being muffled when placed on the desk or on the lap. While they sound good for general use, don't expect deep bass, as most ultrabooks tend to lack in that area. Gaining access to the EliteBook A30G5's internals is relatively straightforward. The bottom panel is secured by just 8 screws, and a standard Phillips head star screwdriver is all you need to get the job done. Inside, you'll find a single fan with one heat pipe which helps with thermal management, 2 removable RAM slots allowing for future upgrades, and a removable M.2 SSD making storage expansion or replacement easy. Overall, upgradability is pretty decent, especially compared to modern ultrabooks that come with soldered RAM and non-upgradable storage. The HP EliteBook A30G5 is a solid business laptop that still holds up well in 2025. Especially if you are looking for a premium aluminum build, a good port selection, and a decent performance for everyday tasks. With that said, it does show its age in certain areas. The thicker bezels, the dated design, and the average display makes it less appealing compared to modern ultrabooks. Battery life is also just average, especially for a used unit. However, the upgradability, the good keyboard and trackpad, and the solid build quality keeps it relevant for office work and general use. If you are considering this laptop, it's best suited for business users, students, and general productivity tasks. But if you need a highly color accurate display, ultra long battery life, or extreme performance, you might want to look elsewhere.